Chris Godinez, licensed professional counselor, also the host of We Need to Talk on every Sunday at noon, and then I post it up to Facebook, and then I do these videos. I post them on Wednesday. This video is for educational and informational purposes only. The views and opinions stated herein are mine and mine alone. They do not represent the ACA, the APA, or any other therapist for that matter. Boom, shakalaka, done. I would like to thank my sponsor, BetterHelp, BetterHelp, BetterHelp.com/Chris Godinez. They are an online therapy company. They are international. They are everywhere. If you can get to an internet, you can get to betterhelp.com/Chris Godinez. So they're awesome because they do packages of therapy. I've gotten really good feedback from people using them. They've liked their therapists, which is really important, and it's affordable. So thank you, betterhelp.com/Chris Godinez. Woo! There we go. Okay, let's dive into this week's questions. Okay, so... When a parent shows disgust for a mentally ill child, is that normal? Hell no. So one of my listeners sent in a question, and apparently they were in a group therapy session, and the therapist was saying, oh, it's normal for parents to be disgusted by their mentally ill child. That would be like being disgusted by a child that had diabetes. Shall we be clear about that? So no, that is not normal, and that therapist should probably be slapped. So, no, disgust is a dislike. Disgust is, oh, I'm disgusted by you. It's a rejection kind of thing. Don't get me started. So again, guys, remember, in my profession, unfortunately, there are a lot of disordered people. A lot. When I was going through my training, out of, I think it was 30 people, there was maybe 4 that I thought should become therapists because they were all in it for the wrong reasons. They were either there for the power differential, i.e. they were narcissists themselves, or they were in it to figure themselves out. And that is the absolute wrong reason to become a therapist. So telling somebody that it's okay to be disgusted by your mentally ill, no. A normal, healthy parent would be alarmed, concerned, wanting to know how to help them, not disgusted, okay? Narcissists are disgusted by their children. Let's be clear about that. If the child isn't perfect, if the child does have mental health issues, don't get me started. So when I told my dad I was in therapy, no, you're not. You're not. No child of mine is in therapy. My children are perfect. My children don't have any problems. And I'm sitting here going, oh, somebody in this room is crazy and it's not me. So narcissists are the ones that have disgust for a mental health issue because their child is not perfect. Do you see where I'm going with that? So that therapist, run, do not walk to the nearest exit. So yeah. And like I said, guys, there are a lot of therapists in my profession, psychiatrists, psychiatric nurses, doctors, police officers, judges, lawyers. Narcissists are drawn to positions of power and they abuse it and they like abusing it and they enjoy pushing the narcissistic agenda, which is, it's okay to abuse or it's okay to feel this. Do you see where I'm going with that? And that's going to kind of lead into another question that I have that I'm going to answer in a second. But no, that is not normal. That is not normal. If there was a mental health issue going on, a healthy parent would be like, oh my God, I'm so scared for them. Oh my God, I'm so worried about them. Oh my God, I'm so concerned. Oh my God, how can we help? Oh my God, do you see where I'm going with that? Not disgust. So in any therapist, it's like, oh yeah, that's okay. No. How about no? How about a side of no, extra helping of no, and what the actual, you know what I'm saying? So I hope that answered that question, which then leads me into another question. Let me make this bigger so I can see what I'm doing. Would a narcissist love your talk show and the way you deliver it? No, they wouldn't. They hate me, and I have the hate mail to prove it. would a narcissist get triggered over talks like this? Generally, no. Well, yes and no. They may recognize their behavior. So, like, I call it out. And if they get triggered, they get angry. So it's not triggered like, oh my God, I shouldn't act like that. Or, oh my God, I have this behavior. I shouldn't be doing that. It's more like, oh, how dare you? How dare you do you know. No, they don't respond the same way you and I do. I cannot make that clear enough. So would they like my show? No. They don't, because I call it out. Would they get triggered? Well, if they are getting called on behavior that they're doing, they'll get angry. Absolutely. They'll get defensive. They'll get hateful. They'll get whatever. A healthy, normal person, if somebody is talking about behavior that they're doing, like, okay, let's talk about fleas. Sometimes people will be like, oh my God, I do this thing that my mom did, or I do this thing that my dad did. I don't have any of the other behaviors, but I do this thing. Well, that's a flea. Okay, if it's a flea, it's a learned behavior. It can be unlearned and replaced with healthier behavior. With a narcissist, if somebody calls them out on their behavior, well, you don't know what you're talking about. You're not a professional. You're just, really? I've got a master's degree and I've been in the profession for over, how many years now? Started in 2006? Oh my God. You know what I'm saying? So yeah, they generally don't like me. When I first started doing this show, I got so much hate mail and so many trolls, and trolls are narcissists. So it's, and I'm like, good. I'm glad I'm pissing you off because you deserve it. So, yeah. So I hope that answered the question. So it's, yeah, they would not get triggered in the same way. They would get angry. They would get angry because I'm calling out the behavior. What narcissists do is that they will read up on psychology. Again, there's a lot of narcissists in my profession. And they'll use the psychological terms. So if somebody's using a lot of psychological terms and they're not a counselor and they're not a therapist and they're not an LPC and they're not a social worker and they're not, you kind of got to go, interesting. Why are you using all these psychological terms if you're not a therapist? See where I'm going with that? So it's for manipulation. They try to use it for manipulation to make themselves sound educated when they're not. They don't understand psychology really at all. And some of them are therapists. I have dealt with people whose abuser was licensed. Not in this state, in other states, but it's holy cow. And I encourage people, like, if they're doing anything unethical, turn them into the board. Absolutely. Because they need to remove themselves from my profession. Thanks. So, or be removed from my profession. So there is that. Okay. I have CPTSD, and I have realized I've always had unhealthy friendships, just like the family. I went no contact with so many of them, and I feel guilty. I'm worried I'm the narcissist. Is this normal? Okay, so yes, it is normal. So here's the deal. When we start getting healthy and we start recognizing how many disordered people are in our friendship circle, we start kicking them out. We do, because they don't jibe with us anymore. That does not make you a narcissist. In fact, narcissists are harem gatherers. They want a following. They want as many, what's the word I'm looking for? The people who, acolytes, is that the word I'm looking for? That might be the wrong word. Anyway, they want as many people following them as possible, because it gives them power. That's their narcissistic supply. So when we start getting healthy, we do start clearing out that friendship closet, because there are simply people that just do not support our best higher selves. They just don't. So yeah, and it does feel weird, and it does feel lonely at first, and it feels like, oh, I'm being too picky or whatever. No, you're not. You need to be picky. You need to be picky. You need to be very selective who you allow into your inner circle. 110%. So yeah, that's a normal thing. It's a normal feeling to feel. Narcissists don't worry about being a narcissist. They're proud of it. They're like, if you tell narcissists that they're a narcissist, they'll be like, well, yeah, of course I am. I was like, what? Do you understand what that means? Because you keep using that word, but I do not think you understand what that means. That's a quote for the Princess Bride. Anyway, so yeah, they don't get it, and they think it's a good thing, and it is no good thing. So they're not worried about being a narcissist. They're not worried about harming other people. They're not worried about other people. So the fact that you're concerned about it, and the fact that you're concerned about being a narcissist, says to me you're probably not a narcissist. Narcissists don't care. They don't have that Jiminy Cricket sitting on their shoulder going, hey, here's the right thing to do. You know, they don't. They're all ego. There is nothing up here except ego. There is no there. And you have to remind yourself of that. So I hope that answered that question. Yes. Okay. Yeah, it is normal to go no contact and then feel very alone because we've been used to surrounding ourselves with people who were like our family of origin. Once you realize that the family of origin is toxic, you start realizing the friends are toxic, you get rid of them, you find the healthier people. How do you find the healthier people? By doing things you love. By going out and being you and working on self-esteem. Glenn Schiraldi, Self-Esteem Workbook. Disease to Please, Harriet Breaker. CPTSD, From Surviving to Thriving, Pete Walker. By doing the things you love, finding out who you are, being authentic, going and doing things that you enjoy, you are more likely to meet like-minded and like-energy people. So that's the way to do that. Okay. The 4 Fs, fight, flight, freeze, and fawn. Is fleeing the same as the cold shoulder? No. So let's talk about that. So our amygdala, okay, it's a little almond-shaped organ that sits about an inch inside of each ear. This little guy is 3 O's stupid. Stupid. Cannot tell the difference between past, present, future, daydreaming, emotional threat, all the same. It's all the same. So the amygdala perceives a threat of some kind. It could be a thought, it could be a smell, it could be a flashback, it could be whatever. This little guy lights up like a Christmas tree. Ah! Tells the hippocampus, hypothalamus, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God, we need cortisol. Cortisol is our stress hormone. So these two guys tell the brain to release cortisol. Cortisol floods the system. Now we're getting tense. Okay, shoulders and ears come up. We crunch our core kind of together because we're trying to protect ourselves. It's almost like going into the fetal position. So we tense up. We're not breathing. Okay, so we've cut off the oxygen CO2 exchange, which tells another part of our brain, a little further down on the brainstem, a little more reptilian. Oh my God, we're going to die. There's no oxygen. Holy crap, we need energy. So then that tells the brain, oh my God, we need adrenaline. We got to get out of here. So the adrenal gland that sits on top of the kidneys releases everything at once. So now we're tense. We're shaking like a leaf, racing thoughts, pounding heart, puffy little breaths, not going anywhere. And our fight, flight, freeze, or fawn kicks in. Okay? So we either have a panic attack because we can't do anything about it. We can't freeze. We can't fawn. We can't, whatever. We're in the car driving. Oh my God, and we'll have a panic attack, or we turn into the Incredible Hulk. So fight, flight, freeze, or fawn. So when faced with a threat, I think my top 2 are probably fight and flee. I'll fight first, and then I'll flee if I have to. So fighting would be, standing your ground, or don't you dare come near me, or, that kind of thing. It's like telling the aggressor to back off kind of thing. Fleeing would be get the hell out of Dodge as quickly as you can, So when there is a threat, you run, literally sometimes. You just get up and run, Fight, flight, freeze. Freezing is where our brains just go, and we just freeze. We can't do anything. We're just like deer in the headlights kind of thing. It's because we don't know what to do. It's like, do I run? Do I stay? What do I do? How do I stay safe? What am I doing? Oh my God. That kind of thing. That's freezing. You just absolutely freeze. And that's a response. Fawning is where you, kind of like the peacekeeping that I talked about before. It's like you give in to the abuser. You fawn them. You play to their ego. You try to soothe them. You try to, give in to them so that they don't kill you. So fight, flight, freeze, or fawn. Those are the responses. Fleeing is not the same as the cold shoulder. Fleeing is an instantaneous thing, just like the fight response is an instantaneous thing that happens when a threat comes in, and we act on it. Okay. That's a knee-jerk reaction. Okay. Fleeing is you get up, you run, but then once the adrenaline runs out, then you're able to kind of come back and cope and do whatever you need to do. So the cold shoulder is ghosting. That's the cold shoulder. That's a form of ghosting. It's shunning. The cold shoulder is shunning. You're not talking to them. And this is different than no contact. Let's be very clear. Shunning, the cold shoulder, is used, stonewalling is what it's called, is used to force the target of abuse back into behavior that the abuser wants. It's used to inflict emotional pain onto the target of abuse so that the target of abuse will do what the abuser wants. So it's shunning, and it lights up the same pain centers that physical pain does. So shunning, cold shoulder, stonewalling is used to inflict emotional pain in the target of abuse. It's intentional and it's obvious. Okay. The further question to this was like a really long question. I'm trying to condense it down. Is that they had a friend that would flee and then just never, they would have to then chase them to come back and be friends and whatever. No, not your job. Not your job. It's not your job to chase people down. If people want to be with you, they will be with you. If they don't, leave them be. Leave them be. If they don't want you, you don't want them. And if somebody's fleeing and shunning you and you're chasing after them, and if they are an abuser, that's feeding their narcissistic supply. So you don't want to do that. It's like if they come back to you and like, hey, I just freaked out, whatever, be careful and just be like, you know what, this is not acceptable. You need to go work on this because I'm not going to put up with it. You know what I'm saying? So healthy friendships, they don't do that. They don't flee and then leave you hanging. That sounds very dysfunctional to me. So no, fleeing is not the same as fight, flight, freeze, or fawn. So fleeing, the cold shoulder, I'm sorry. Let me try that again. The cold shoulder is not the same as fight, flight, freeze, or fawn. So the fight, flight, freeze, or fawn is an instant response, a knee-jerk reaction to a danger that comes in. If the friend is fleeing because you guys had a conflict and they didn't like what you were saying, and then you have to go chase them, that's not fight, flight, freeze, or fawn. That's the cold shoulder. That's the stonewalling. That's a manipulation. So, I hope that made that clear. I hope that was not clear as mud. I hope I made it clearer than that. So fight, flight, freeze, or fawn is an instantaneous reaction to a threat that's coming in. It's a knee-jerk reaction. It happens, but then it passes and the person is able to continue to function. Stonewalling is a manipulation that is used to force the target of abuse into behavior that the abuser wants. Okay? Feeding their ego, whatever. So if you're constantly having to chase a person that flees and they're saying that they're fleeing, I was feeling threatened and I flew, whatever, and then you have to go chase them back into the relationship, that's a manipulation. Absolutely, that's a manipulation. So anyway, I hope that answered that question. Okay, let me see if there is, oops. If I could spell, I would be dangerous. Let me see if there's any other questions that I needed to, oh Lord, I really need to get better contacts. Hang on. Okay, so, all right, going through the questions, making sure I got the ones that I needed to answered. Okay. All right. So, okay. All right. It's complex and complicated. So next week's show is going to be on grief and PTSD. So we're going to talk about both grief and PTSD, and I'm going to title it, It's Complex and Complicated, because if I actually title it Grief and PTSD, YouTube will be like, oh my God, we can't talk about that. Don't get me started. Anyway, so also remember, this coming Sunday's show, the time is changing. The time will have changed on that Saturday. So it will be 11 a.m. Pacific, 2 p.m. Eastern, always 12 p.m. Arizona, because we don't change the time here, which I really like. So Anyway, all right, you guys, have a great week. Be good to yourselves. Drink lots of water. Next week's show is called It's Complex. It's complicated and complex. Grief and PTSD. So I won't put the grief and the PTSD in it, but it'll be about grief and PTSD. All right, you guys, go be good to yourselves, and I will talk to you later.